In a small village, there was a young man named Arav who carried within him a very big dream. He wanted to become a writer, someone who could create stories capable of changing the way others think and feel. Arav had countless ideas. Whenever he thought about writing, his mind would burst into hundreds of vivid images and new plot lines. But something strange kept happening. Every time he began, he would stop far too soon. Today, he might write 2 pages. Tomorrow, he would quit. At times, he resolved to keep a journal, but after only a few days, the notebook would end up in the corner of his desk, gathering dust. Weeks passed, then months. The dream was still there, yet everything he did remained unfinished, like a painting torn into many pieces. And then one evening, Arav witnessed something that would change his life forever. But before that evening arrived, Arav had gone through many days of disappointment in himself. He did not lack talent. What he lacked was perseverance. Each time he started a new story, Arav felt full of excitement. He wrote quickly, wrote a lot, believing that this time would be different. But after only a day or two, that enthusiasm slowly faded away. The unfinished pages lay silently on his desk, reminding him of a promise left unfulfilled. Once Arav told himself he would write every morning. He prepared his notebook, his pen, and even set his alarm earlier than usual. Yet, after just a few days, the habit disappeared, as if it had never existed. Time kept moving forward. 1 week followed another. 1 month turned into the next. His dream of becoming a writer still burned in his heart, but his actions were scattered and inconsistent. Arav began to wonder whether he truly had what it took to pursue his dream. And it was in that very doubt that the fateful evening appeared. That evening, with his mind still heavy, Arav walked to the riverbank in search of a little peace. A gentle breeze blew, and the surface of the water was as still as a mirror. It was there that he saw an old man carefully chiseling small strikes into a large rock. The sound echoed steadily, not fast, not forceful, just steady. Arav stopped to watch. The chisel in the old man's hand looked tiny compared to the solid block of stone. He couldn't understand how such a small tool could possibly create any change. Unable to contain his curiosity, Arav stepped closer and asked how long he had been doing this work. The old man smiled kindly and said that he had spent 1 hour there every day for the past 2 years. 2 years of small, precise strikes. Arav was astonished. The old man looked at him gently and said that it is not a single strike that changes the rock, but the daily repetition that shapes it into something new. Every strike has value, even if the change cannot be seen immediately. Those words touched Arav more deeply than any advice he had ever received. If you have ever started something only to give up halfway, like Arav, comment the number 8 to remind yourself that every small step you take today is building something great for tomorrow. That night, Arav returned home with a clear thought in his mind. He didn't need to write an entire book all at once. He just needed 1 small strike each day. Instead of setting goals that were too big, Arav made a simple commitment: write 1 page a day. No more, no less. Just 1 page, whether inspiration was abundant or scarce. The first week passed with excitement. Ideas flowed constantly, and his pen barely paused. But then fatigue began to appear. Some evenings Arav felt exhausted. Some mornings he didn't even want to open his notebook. Doubt returned, whispering that 1 page a day would make no real difference. But this time Arav did not give up. He remembered the rock by the river. He remembered the steady strikes over 2 years. So even on the hardest days he kept writing. Some days it was only a few lines, but he kept his promise to himself. And then something strange began to happen. The pages slowly started to pile up. Day after day, Arav kept that habit as something non-negotiable. He didn't wait for inspiration to write. He wrote in order to create inspiration. The first weeks passed slowly. Each page was just a small step, and at times Arav still felt as if he were standing still. But then one evening, as he flipped back through what he had written, he suddenly realized that the notebook had grown thicker without him even noticing. 30 pages, then 60 pages, then 100 pages. The number increased little by little, just like the chisel strikes he had once seen by the river. There was no magical day, no explosive breakthrough, only ordinary days repeated the right way. Time kept moving forward. 100 pages became 200, 200 became 300. And one day Arav put down his pen and looked at the thick stack of paper on his desk, his heart beating faster. He had finished the first book of his life, not because of one day of extraordinary effort, but because of many days of steady, consistent effort, just enough every single day. But the first book was only the beginning. Arav held the stack of manuscripts in his hands and sent them to publishers with great hope. He thought that once he had finished a book, every door would open. But reality was not that simple. The responses began to arrive. Some publishers rejected it. Some remained silent. Others sent only a brief line saying they could not accept the manuscript. Each time, Arav felt his heart sink. The old doubts returned, whispering that perhaps he wasn't good enough. Perhaps this dream was only an illusion. But then Arav remembered that evening by the river. The old man had not given up, just because the rock hadn't changed after a few days. And Arav could not give up just because of a few rejections. Instead of stopping, he kept writing. One more page, one more story, one more submission. If you've made it this far, comment the number 9 so I know you're still here and that you believe in the power of perseverance too. Time continued to pass and Arav maintained his steady rhythm of work. No longer in a rush, no longer overly anxious about the outcome. Each day he focused on one familiar task, writing. 1 year went by, then 2. During that time, Arav not only completed new manuscripts but also refined his skills. His words became clearer, his storytelling more coherent. Perseverance did not just help him write more, it helped him write better. Then one day, a reply email arrived. This time, it wasn't a rejection. A publisher wanted to discuss his manuscript further. Arav's book was finally published. Not because of sudden luck, not because of a single moment of genius, but because of 2 years of quiet, consistent effort day after day. From a young man who used to leave everything unfinished, Arav became someone who turned his dream into reality, one small page at a time. And that is Arav's story, a young man who once had countless dreams and ideas yet always left things unfinished, until he understood one simple truth. Success does not come from the days when you try extremely hard and then disappear. It comes from the small things you do every day, even when you don't see immediate results. Like the rock by the river. It doesn't change after a single strike, but small strikes repeated long enough will create a new shape. Life is the same. Skills are the same. And so are your dreams. If today you feel like you're moving slowly, remember that slow is fine, as long as you don't stop. Just one small step each day, and you will go farther than you think. And if this story makes you think of yourself, choose the one thing you want most and start today. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. Because your future isn't built in a single day. It is built every day,